Hello everyone, I'm going to present my paper called Towards Avatar-Friendly 3D Manipulation Techniques, Bridging the Gap Between Sense of Embodiment and Interaction in Virtual Reality, written by Diane Dewez, Ludovic Hoyet, Anatole, Lécuyer, and Ferran Argelaguet. In virtual reality, virtual bodies called avatars are increasingly used, especially in social VR applications. Studies investigate how users can feel a sense of embodiment towards such avatars, so feel like these avatars are their real body. This is possible, for example, by making the avatar reproduce users' movement, like in this video, thus creating a sense of embodiment. So avatars are users' proxy that let them interact with the virtual world. So users use input devices to control their avatar that then interacts with the virtual environment. Then the virtual environment gives feedback to the user through output devices. The control of the avatar depends on the interaction technique used, but there are techniques that are not compatible with complex avatars. For example, go-go technique, which amplifies users' movements to let them reach remote objects, is not highly compatible with a complex avatar, because you can display a floating hand, or if you have a full-body avatar, you can display an extended arm, but both types of feedback are strange and can break the sense of embodiment. The goal of this paper is to give VR developers preliminary guidelines towards creating what we call avatar-friendly techniques, i.e. techniques that take the user's avatar into account in the design process to preserve both performance and sense of embodiment. For example, body-centered interaction with good tracking is avatar-friendly. So we conducted a twofold analysis investigating interrelationships between avatars and interaction, focusing on 3D manipulation techniques. The first part of the analysis investigated the impact of an avatar on the way users interact. Overall, avatars can impact performance and perception of the virtual environment. For example, avatars can impact object size perception. If you have an enlarged hand, a cube can look smaller than it actually is, and this effect is even higher when using a realistic hand texture. The second part of the analysis focuses on the impact of interaction design choices on avatars, and more specifically on the sense of embodiment. So indeed, when designing interaction techniques, developers can make choices that are beneficial or detrimental to the sense of embodiment. In brief, the environment should be shown from a first-person perspective, because previous work showed that it is harder to embody an avatar from a third-person perspective. Rich multisensory feedback, so congruent visual, audio, and haptic, so touch feedback, is good for embodiment. And most importantly, providing good and faithful control of the avatar enhances embodiment. An example of the impact of an input device choice. Input devices using finger tracking, like gloves, increase embodiment compared to classic controllers. But this is true only when the tracking is good, because otherwise users can notice artifacts that can break the illusion. So from this analysis, we propose several guidelines classified into 3 categories: input, control, and feedback. For example, VR developers should prioritize hand tracking. Also, they should use assistance for fine manipulation and handle collisions instead of displaying interpenetrations, because users prefer this type of visually realistic control. When possible, developers should use haptic feedback because it was found to increase the sense of embodiment. In total, we have a set of 14 guidelines, 2 for input, 5 for control, and 7 for feedback. You can find these guidelines in the paper. We also propose several research topics to guide future studies and fill the gaps in our knowledge about avatars and interaction. Globally, we lack of knowledge of all the interrelationships between input devices, control laws, and types of feedback. For example, we need studies investigating how to control a virtual hand using one specific device, so how to choose the best mapping. We also lack of knowledge on the importance of different types of feedback on embodiment. For example, different types of haptic feedback, or the impact of congruent audio and haptic feedback. So we hope these guidelines and research topics will help VR developers and researchers, and that in the future will invent the next generation of interaction techniques compatible with avatars. Thanks for your attention.